Once upon a time, in a kingdom under the sea, there lived a mermaid named Aria. Aria was the youngest of 6 sisters, and she was known as the Little Mermaid. She had the most beautiful voice, and her eyes were as blue as the ocean. Her tail shimmered like 1,000 little stars, and her long hair flowed gently with the currents of the deep sea. Aria loved to listen to stories about the world above the water. Her grandmother, who was very wise and kind, would share tales of the humans who lived on land. They walked on 2 legs instead of having tails, and they built tall cities that reached the sky. Aria's favorite story was about a human prince who was brave, kind, and very handsome. The Little Mermaid dreamed of the day when she could see the world above the water. Mermaids were not allowed to go to the surface until they were 15 years old, and Aria had a few more years to wait. She would often sit on a rock near the surface, listening to the sounds of the waves and imagining the wonderful things she would see when she could finally swim above the water. One day, when Aria finally turned 15, her grandmother gave her permission to swim to the surface. The Little Mermaid was overjoyed and swam up as fast as she could. As she reached the surface, she saw a magnificent ship sailing across the sea. Aboard the ship, there was a celebration with music and laughter. Aria watched the people on the ship as they danced and sang. She was enchanted by the sight and sound of their happiness. Then, she saw the prince, who was even more handsome than her grandmother had described. He had dark hair and kind eyes, and he moved with grace as he danced with his friends. Aria fell in love with him at first sight, and she longed to be a part of his world. As the sun began to set, the ship was struck by a terrible storm. The waves grew taller and more powerful, and the ship was tossed about like a toy. Aria watched in horror as the prince was thrown overboard and disappeared beneath the waves. Without a second thought, she dove into the raging sea to save him. The Little Mermaid swam as fast as she could, fighting against the powerful waves to reach the prince. Just as he was about to sink beneath the surface, Aria grabbed him and pulled him to safety. She brought him to the shore, where he lay unconscious but alive. Aria sang a gentle lullaby to soothe him, and her beautiful voice filled the air. As the storm cleared, a group of humans found the prince on the beach. Aria hid behind a rock, watching as they helped him to his feet. The prince was weak and confused, but he managed to smile and thank the people who had saved him. Aria knew that she had to return to the sea, but her heart ached at the thought of leaving the prince behind. Back in her undersea kingdom, the Little Mermaid couldn't stop thinking about the prince and the world above the water. She longed to be a human, to walk on the land and be with the prince she loved. Aria knew that there was only one way to make her dream come true. She had to visit the Sea Witch. The Sea Witch lived in a dark and frightening part of the ocean, far away from the safety and beauty of the Mermaid Kingdom. Aria was afraid, but her love for the prince was stronger than her fear. She swam to the Sea Witch's cave and begged for help. The Sea Witch was a cunning and powerful creature. She agreed to help Aria, but at a high price. The Sea Witch told Aria that she could turn her into a human, but she would have to give up her beautiful voice in exchange. The Little Mermaid would also have to convince the prince to fall in love with her and marry her. If she failed, she would turn back into a mermaid and never be able to be with the prince again. Aria was heartbroken at the thought of losing her voice, but her love for the prince was so strong that she agreed to the Sea Witch's terms. The witch gave her a magical potion that would turn her tail into legs, and in return, she took Aria's beautiful voice. The Little Mermaid swam to the surface, drank the potion, and transformed into a human. She was in pain, but her determination to be with the prince kept her going. When her tail turned into legs, she stumbled onto the shore, unable to walk properly. The prince, who had been searching for the beautiful voice that had saved him, found Aria on the beach. He didn't recognize her, but he was kind and gentle as he helped her to her feet. Aria couldn't speak, but she looked into his eyes, and he saw the love and kindness within her. The prince brought Arya to his castle, where she learned to walk and dance on her new legs. She was graceful and elegant, and everyone in the kingdom adored her. The prince and Arya grew closer, spending every day together. They rode horses, explored the kingdom, and danced under the moonlight. Arya's love for the prince grew stronger, but she couldn't tell him how she felt because she had no voice. One day, the prince announced that he was going to marry a princess from a neighboring kingdom. Arya's heart sank, and she knew that she was running out of time. She needed the prince to fall in love with her, but she couldn't tell him who she really was. The night before the prince's wedding, Arya went to the beach and cried. Her tears fell into the ocean, and as they touched the water, a miracle happened. The sea witch's spell was broken, and Arya's voice returned to her. She was overjoyed and sang a beautiful song that echoed across the waves. The prince, who had been walking along the shore, heard Arya's voice and recognized it as the one that had saved him. He rushed to her side and listened as she told him the story of how she had saved his life and given up her voice to be with him. The prince realized that Arya was the one he truly loved, and he called off his wedding to the other princess. Arya and the prince were married in a beautiful ceremony by the sea. Everyone in the kingdom rejoiced, and even the mermaids and sea creatures from Arya's undersea home came to celebrate. The Little Mermaid's dream had come true, and she became a human princess, living happily ever after with her true love, the prince. And that, dear child, is the end of our tale. Good night, little one. May you have sweet dreams and wake up to a beautiful new day filled with kindness and love.